This episode is brought to you by White Cloud Coffee Roasters, where every bean tells a story of adventure and passion. Nestled in the heart of Idaho's mountain wilderness, White Cloud has been mastering the craft of coffee for more than 38 years, bringing the spirit of the outdoors into every cup. Discover the difference in their premium beans, meticulously roasted to capture the essence of the mountains. From robust, full-bodied classics to creative flavored blends, White Cloud coffees are designed for you to appreciate the subtleties of premium coffee. Now, listeners of our podcast can get an exclusive 10% discount. Just use the promo code CREATIVITY at checkout. Visit whitecloudcoffee.com and use the code CREATIVITY for your 10% discount. Start your adventure today. Journey to whitecloudcoffee.com. Tap into your most original thinking. Organize your ideas and create the opportunities to launch your creative work. Unlocking your world of creativity with best-selling author and brand innovator, Mark Stinson.
Welcome back, friends, to our podcast, Your World of Creativity. And today we're going to talk about an interesting angle in the world of comedy. The crossover, the overlap of comedy and courtrooms. Oh my gosh. Just ask Dave Chappelle and Conan O'Brien, Howard Stern, all these folks. You know, it's one thing to have a bad joke, but it's another one to land in the courtroom, especially these days as litigious as our society has become. So my guest today is an attorney, he's an editor, he's a writer, but he really explores this overlap in a great book called Comedy Goes to Court. My guest is Carl Unegbu. Carl, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much, Matt. I appreciate the invite, and this is great. Thanks.
Absolutely. Well, this Comedy Goes to Court, and I love the subhead. When people stop laughing, and they start supposed to be laughing at the comedy, but what happens when it goes to court?
Exactly. I mean, as the name implies, when you go to court, the laughter, it means the laughter has already stopped that point.
Yeah.
Now, this is a book I wrote, sort of like a service to the industry, both comedians and non-comedians, more broadly, which means the rest of us who are not comedians.
Yes.
So for both sides, there are things in it. For the comedians, it's obvious. It covers their industry, for how they deal, what they can or cannot say, and how they protect their jokes, which is sort of like money in today's world. And the relationship between them and other people. Now, for folks who are not comedians, namely the rest of us, the rest of the world, who are comedians are totally different and sort of animals. Some the weird is, they are so like different for all the rest of us.
Yes.
So for all the rest of us, I wrote the book, first of all, as entertainment. You know, there are lots of wonderful titillating stories in the book about what comedians were doing, adventures, misadventures, shenanigans, all that sorts of stuff, in how they live their lives and how they interact with other folks know, bro. So, I mean, the book is written in such easy read style, sort of like the easy kind of language you might be familiar with. Favorite People magazine, the world famous page 6 of the New York Post. So it's written in that kind of simple language where anybody, just an everyday person, can access the sort of language it contains. And so it becomes a book where people can read it, you know, on vacation, on a couch, you know, any place where they like to read things. So it has that feel.
Yes.
And then because of the stories and the sort of stuff in it, it can make you feel like, you know, you're watching a show on Comedy Central or taking in some Netflix kind of a special or a roast. It gives you that kind of feeling, you know. So that's part of what I wrote the book, for that kind of entertainment value. Now, from there,
so I was curious, Carl. Your background is obviously as a lawyer, but you've also been a journalist. You do quite a bit of writing. How did you decide to connect with the world of comedy and decide to really understand this field?
Very interesting. I'm glad you should bring that up because it doesn't come. It kind of fascinates people how this came about. But the simple story is that when I was going to journalism school, because I previously was a lawyer before I went on to journalism. So when I was going to school at Columbia, uh, studying journalism, I mean, I went to a show, cover like some grants for class. I submitted for class assignment, and it was well received. That subsequently went back to the club around on the Upper West Side, Manhattan. And so I took him more shows, but that was the extent of that. And then when I started being a journalist in the city, when I graduated, I was working as a journalist. I wasn't even like talking about comedy. And then some friends approached me, some former colleagues of mine at School of Journalism. Dude, why don't we like have a website, a news site that covers comedy as news, sort of like a journalistic sort of. There we are no websites or any publications in America that cover comedy, unlike in Europe. In Europe, there's an official comedy press. We didn't have that here. So we I figured, why don't we even like get things going? So that's how we started Comedy Bit, covering comedy. And then on the side, we had a blog row with different blogs covering different subjects. My blog covered the intersection of comedy and the law. Comedians that I noticed were getting in trouble with the law. It was supposed to be fun and dance. A lot of times, I started to notice comedians were getting sued, sometimes by other comedians over stolen drugs, or other times by people who are offended, mostly the claims about defamation, and then other times by business entities, partners, the networks, Comedy Central, for instance, Dave Chappelle, or maybe NBC when they had problems with Conan O'Brien, or Paramount when they had problems, they let them get a chambering. So these things, they became more frequent. And I started to see like a trend from like 2000 up until the present time. So we are talking about like over the past 25 years. Talking about, if you look back one generation ago, one generation earlier than that, in the days of, let's say, Jack Park, Johnny Carson, wasn't the same way. So this kind of lawsuit, people like no longer having a health sense of humor, it's sort of like a newly minted phenomenon.
Mm-hmm. And as you're describing some of these stories, I'm interested, as a journalist and a writer, your process. We love to talk about the creative process on this show a little bit. So how did you begin to research and put together the book? It certainly had to be a challenge.
Oh, it was. I mean, I never intended to write a book at all about, comedy and the law. I mean, this book started its life more than 10 years ago when I was writing a blog. The book was like an ultimate product of the blog. And it was suggested to me by people who came, to some of the events we were having. Because I was hosting I used to host a show in Manhattan called Comedy Dialogue, where we would bring in, comedians to do stand-up comedy. And then after that, we sit down and have a conversation, like a panel kind of conversation with the comedians who had just performed. Then there was wine or cheese and things like that. So yeah, it was always, we had that like once every 2 months. So it was during one of these events that, folks who were reading my blog, they dude, why don't you like put this into a book? I mean, these subjects are fascinating. They are like totally fine. I'm like, put it into a book. Everybody's writing a book. This is why not for you?
Yes. Well, and certainly this book is a little different. I mean, there's a lot bookshelves full of comedy books, but this book takes a different tack, doesn't it?
It does, because first of all, I wrote the book. It's not just a comedy book, or it's not a book of jokes at all, even though it has a lot of jokes. And it's not just a book about the law, even though it has a lot about law. And then it's not just a book that's a commentary on comedy, even though it is that. So it's a combo. And I could only do it because I have a background as a journalist and as a lawyer. So I knew the law. I didn't have to have anybody explain the law to me. Something that somebody who wasn't a lawyer would need to do, to have a lawyer explain the law to them. So I was already a lawyer, so I didn't need anybody to explain the law. Now, how about comedy? I was also, a comedy editor, now reporter. So I knew that aspect too. So I knew like what the comedians we are looking for, the kind of language, simple language that you could write and write these things so they can get it. See, if I wrote like a lawyer, lawyers write like lawyers. Nobody would understand comedy. If I wrote the book like a lawyer,
Yes.
lots of legal jargon and mumbo jumbo, analyzing cases, to have freezes over, the way lawyers do. No, that had to do with the show more like as a journalist. A journalist is a storyteller. Such, because of that tradition of storytelling, we write for general audience. We write in a way that people on the streets can understand. And in my case, I decided to take it even one step further, to write it more like what you see in People magazine, even more simple. But I was able to do this because of my background. First, you have to know the law, so you can explain the film to people in a simple way. And then, being a journalist, I had this practice tendency to write in simple language. That I was able to explain the law in such simple language as a journalist would.
Yes.
So that was how it came about.
What do you think from the creative standpoint? Yeah, we're going to have a lot of creative writers. They probably might be stand-up comedians. They might be, writers for comedians, or even trying to write a comedy film. What are some of the takeaways or lessons do you think these folks would derive from reading your book?
Oh, thank you for bringing that up. So the book, it breaks things down for if you're a comedy writer, for instance. It tells you how the kinds of things you cannot write about. Like, there are some serious issues around defamation, which has become a big thing these days.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the First Amendment, and then there's defamation. So the thing is, how do these two things come together? There are lots of lawsuits I cover in this book, for instance, like one on defamation. I cover lots of cases on defamation, one involving Jerry Seinfeld, Jimmy Kimmel, Dave Chappelle, Conan O'Brien, all these guys. These cases they get involved in. It teaches you what you can say and what you cannot say. For instance, there is a difference between making a statement of fact and making a statement of opinion.
Yes.
So because we live in America, a lot of comedians, because of the First Amendment, which makes America so different from even Canada up in the north, and then the European part. So because of the First Amendment, there is this commitment to free speech. Free speech means you are allowed to be wrong in some things without consequence, because the idea is to promote free speech. As long as you're not intentionally telling a lie, if you happen to be wrong in some particulars, even though you're trying to pursue the truth, make a free speech, the law will excuse you. So that's First Amendment stuff. And combine that with the law of defamation. Now, you have this difference between an opinion and a fact. A statement of fact is sort of like something that is either true or false. If you say that it rained yesterday at 4 p.m., well, it either rained or it didn't.
Mm-hmm.
If it rained at 4 p.m. yesterday, then, that's a true statement of fact. But if it happens to not be true, it didn't rain and you said it rained, and you were making a statement of fact, then that's a false statement of fact. So what gets you in trouble is to make a false statement of fact. That's how defamation liability arises, right? Now, that's different from an opinion. If you can have an opinion and say, well, Biden is too old today, or Jerry Leno, or somebody is a racist, or somebody is whatever, that's just an opinion, which is different from a fact. If you say that somebody had an affair, if the person did not have an affair, then that's a false statement of fact, and that's the defamation. You understand?
It's very
that's
interesting.
different from an opinion. You think somebody's an idiot or somebody's a fool. That's an opinion. So so defamation is heavy with things like that, and I cover lots of situations like that in this book, which shows comedy writers and comedians, the kinds of things you can say and the kinds of things you cannot say. Like the case of Jerry Seinfeld that I have. He went on David Letterman's show and talked about some woman who had a problem with his wife over some children's cookbook that they were fighting about. So the woman sued Jerry Seinfeld's wife for plagiarism, and Seinfeld's wife ended up winning the lawsuit. So Seinfeld goes on my show, and he begins to talk about this woman. That the woman was a wacko, and was crazy, that she has 3 names, that people with 3 names. So the woman got angry, and then she sues him. Through them, I think she sued Letterman. Well, Jerry Seinfeld won the case easily because, the court said, well, look, that was the talk show, the comedy show, people who were watching the show, nobody would have thought that just because he said those things, that he meant them literally.
Mm-hmm.
That, nobody listening to Jerry Seinfeld said those things would believe that this woman was actually, that kind of thing. So it was like an opinion. So they let him slide. But there's another case where a comedian could actually get in trouble for making a statement of fact. I have the case covered here, the case from Australia. There's this comedian called Rick Malone. So he went on another show, what they call Before the Game, like a show, a bro kind of show. A bro kind of show where, people make rough jokes.
Yes.
Things are humorous and friends. So he goes on that show, and then he says that there was this woman in Australia who was a politician, a member of parliament, a highly placed woman in society. Then this comedian, Nick Mullen, said that she had an affair with somebody who was a player on her husband's football team. Her husband was a football coach. They call it soccer in Australia, but they call it football in Australia, but we call it soccer here.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So he said that she had an affair with some player on her husband's football team, soccer team. It turns out not to be true. So she sues him. And then he said, well, I'm a comedian, this is a humorous show, it was just a joke. The court said, no, this is not a joke. You alleged she had an affair. That was a statement of fact. Happened to have been wrong. She didn't have an affair. You have damaged her reputation in society. Because that's what defamation is about.
That's right.
Damage somebody's reputation in society. So yeah, so that's the context there. It's sort of like tells you the difference between a statement of fact and a statement of opinion.
Well, your stories have so much flavor, and like you said, it's part personality, magazine, and it's
I know.
and lots of lessons learned.
Lots of
I love reading a lot of the stories in the book. It's really good. Well, Carl, where can people find the book, and then also where can they follow you and learn more about your work?
Oh yes, so obviously the first place, these days every book is on Amazon, so that's like the first place they can get it. And then they can also go to a local bookstore, ask for the book by name, and it will be there. It will be in their hand. And so I write a blog. It's called Courtrooms Law. So it can be read at OCARLS law LAW.com. And then when I'm not doing that, I'm a contributor to a comedy website. It's called Late Night, as in late night. So we cover a lot of late night events. So, the book is got lots of stories. It's less, but look, if people want to read the book just for the stories alone, it's well worth the read.
I would agree.
They can also just read the thing because we live in America. People want to understand the limits of the First Amendment. And comedians are sort of like our canary in the mine. They have arrived at the front lines, back to over prison. So what happens to them affects the rest of us. Because comedians have just the same rights as all the rest of us. But because they talk for a living, they are the ones who immediately encounter this problem. Problems of people trying to shut them off, by lawsuits. And then, the lawsuits are not coming from just the woke mob, the people who want to cancel people. The lawsuits are also coming from people with money, like Donald Trump. I had the case here with Donald Trump where he sues Bill Maher for making a joke about Donald Trump's hair.
Mm-hmm.
So people thought he was just making a joke on Jerry Leno's show. He said if Donald Trump would show that he wasn't the son of an orangutan and a human woman, that he would give him $5 million. And the backstory here was when Donald Trump was saying that Barack Obama wasn't born in America. And if Obama could show his birth certificate, he would give him money, $5 million. So BMI turns it around and said, well, look, if you can show that the way your hair looks like the color of an orange orangutan. If you can show that an orange orangutan was not your father, I'll give you $5 million. So it looked like it was a joke by a comedian on a comedy show. Donald Trump turns around and tells him, look, here's my birth certificate. You pay me $5 million. When Mao refused to pay the money, Donald Trump sues him. And it's like the kinds of crazy things that happen to comedians.
Yeah,
They
sure
get
does.
sued by every kind of person, even things that you wouldn't expect should lead to a lawsuit.
Yes.
Anyway, but so Bill Maher won, but Donald Trump had made him spend a lot of money and raked him over the coal. So it's part of the strategy to shut him up in that way. I mean, Donald Trump wasn't exactly hoping to win the case.
No,
He
that
was
wasn't.
like
That's
trying-
never the point.
yeah, to teach him a lesson. And I have another case here, very close to that one. John Oliver was sued by a guy from West Virginia, the guy who he owns the largest coal company in America, Robert Murray. Right. Murray, Oliver made a joke on his show that Murray was undermining the coal industry regulation. There was an accident in Utah in 2007 at a mine, one of his coal mines, where about 9 people got killed. So Oliver was saying that Robert Murray was a geriatric doctor. He looks terrible. He was undermining coal safety regulations. They argued about what was the cause of that accident. Oliver said it was because this guy was cutting corners over coal mine safety regulation. And then the billionaire was saying, no. It happened because there was an earthquake. So there was that conflict there over what happened. And then Oliver made jokes on his show, and then this guy sues him. First, he tells Oliver, he sends him a cease and desist letter. Say, look, don't run this episode. If you run the episode, we are going to sue you. It's a defamation. Oliver comes on his show and says, well, I've been warned not to run this episode. Actually, I'm going to run the episode anyway. And he ran the episode. But this guy is a billionaire. He's got money. So he sues him. He wasn't joking around.
Yes. Well,
But
it's
anyway.
funny. It's funny you use that term because here we are. We want to be joking around, but if you're affecting somebody's name and reputation and
Right.
business, then
Yeah.
there are legal ramifications for sure.
But here's the thing. Oliver won that suit easily because, again, this is America. The court said it was just an opinion. There was the First Amendment and everything. But then before he won that suit filed in West Virginia, which is coal country. So Oliver won. By the time he won that suit, he had spent over $200,000 on lawyers' fees. Then his insurance rates on his show went up by more than 300%. But that was the point. The point wasn't that the billionaire was going to win, but the point was to teach this guy a lesson, not to mess with the wrong marines. So, I mean, these are the pressures comedians face. They exercise their right to free speech, but it gets costly. It's costly in our society where people are litigation crazy. I mean, they will literally sue anything that moves in America.
That's right. Well, Carl, I've really enjoyed our conversation. Folks, my guest has been Carl Unegbu. Carl, what a great time we've had talking about these stories. Can't wait to delve into more of them in your book. And listeners, it's called Comedy Goes to Court: When People Stop Laughing and Start Fighting. And that's when the laughter definitely dies down.
Exactly.
When you're in the courtroom, not much room for
When you're in the
laughter.
courtroom,
Right?
it means you've already stopped laughing.
Exactly. And you can read more from Carl on his blog, ocarlslaw.com. And we'll have all these links in the show notes. You can find them and follow. So, Carl, what's next for you? What else are you working on these days?
Yeah, well, so apart from me writing for Late Nighter, I'll continue to write the blog, and there'll be more. They want to follow up more of these kinds of stories on the blog. There are lots of on the book, because the book only has maybe 25% of what's on the blog. So the blog is a place where they could have a party, feast on these kinds of stories that friends found. One other thing I want to leave with your audience is there is a whole section about the relationship between comedians and the rest of us who are not comedians. Whole section on that. Like the case of a British woman who she was going through a divorce from her ex-husband. Then she said, well, I want to put in the separation agreement that you're never going to talk about this relationship on stage. And the guy says, well, what the hell are you talking about? I've been dying for 2 years to talk about this failing marriage on stage. And then there was another case too, Seinfeld. He was the comedian this time who was actually the ex-wife. And she was accusing the former husband of abusing her, and the husband who wasn't a comedian. And then he sues her. And then
all sorts
all
of
the way,
stories behind the scenes.
yeah, all the way to another case. The biggest, one of the most interesting cases I have here involves a guy that I actually know. He's a comedian, but he moonlights. He's a judge, but he moonlights as a comedian. And then, when he goes doing comedy, he talks about like how he doesn't like children. He says also stuff about people from different national origin and religion. Things that made people feel uncomfortable. Well, look, if I became a litigant, come to this guy's courtroom, I have a case in front of this guy. Because of this things he said, I may not get a fair trial. He doesn't like children. He has all these things, different religions. So they made a complaint against him to get them removed as a judge. And then the case went all the way to the New Jersey Supreme Court. Well, I won't tell you how it ended, but they'll have to read the book.
Well, we'll have to read the book. I love that cliffhanger. Well, my guest has been Carl Unegbu, and Carl, thanks again. And listeners, we've stamped our creative passports in New York City today, but we're going to continue our around-the-world journeys. We like to talk to authors, singer-songwriters, actors, all animators, creators of all kinds about how they get inspired, but also how they organize, research, publish their ideas, and finally, how to get their work out into the world. And that's what we want you to learn from our podcast. And we've learned a lot today from Carl. So come back again for our next episode as we continue these creative conversations to help you get your work out into the world. Until then, I'm Mark Stinson, and we'll keep unlocking your world of creativity. We'll see you next time.
Unlocking Your World of Creativity with best-selling author and brand innovator, Mark Stinson. This program was produced by BSB Media, creators of IntelliKey Leadership Stories, Unlocking Your World of Creativity, and thepeaceroom.love. Are you an author who's tired of the long waits and low royalties? Exact Rush is here to change the game. We specialize in publishing with precision, and we get your book to market in just 3 to 6 months, not years. But we're not just about books. We also support your photography, web design, and content creation needs. Our focus ranges from spirituality to pop culture, and we're excited about our diverse lineup of upcoming releases. So, if you're ready to keep more of your hard-earned money and get published faster, Exact Rush is your ticket. Visit exactrush.com and turn your creative dream into a profitable reality today.